We've all read horror stories about PCs with obnoxious flaws. So, how do we build imperfect characters that are fun for the other players and fun for us to play? First, let's talk about where most players go wrong. I spent hours reading hundreds of Reddit horror stories, analyzing the exact moment that character flaws became a problem. As I did this, it became apparent that there were a handful of character archetypes that were a little more problematic than others. It'll probably surprise no one that murder hobos top the list, but runners-up for most problematic include the lone wolf, Kleptos, religious fanatics, cowards, and evil characters. And before you go judging people for wanting to play these archetypes in the first place, I think it's important to remember that a lot of these characters are actually beloved tropes in media. So why is writing a character like this for a book, a movie, or a video game different than playing one at the table? One of the reasons some character flaws are more likely to cause chaos at the table is because of party expectations. Most D&D games are formed around the idea that you are part of a team of good guys, of competent heroes. So when one of you isn't, your teammates might be rightfully miffed. Luckily, with good communication, this issue is fairly easy to avoid. If you're thinking about playing a more deeply flawed character, or you're a DM running a game where someone's expressed interest in this, talk to the group about it. And this doesn't have to ruin the surprise for the person who's playing this type of PC. After an initial DM to player conversation, go give Matt Coville's video on playing an evil character a watch. He goes over some tips, including having the DM explicitly state to everyone that playing a good guy isn't required for this adventure. And while that video is about evil characters, this goes for the other flaws as well. Having it known that you don't all have to be hyper-competent hero types will make it a lot less awkward when that's what one of the players shows up with. A big chunk of this problem can be solved by simply setting the expectations. But the biggest reason that some of these more troubling flaws often fall flat has more to do with how the flaws affect the rest of the party. You may have noticed in the aforementioned list of trouble children archetypes that these flaws aren't only disruptive to the player's character and what that character wants. Where a PC who's vengeful but ultimately wants a peaceful life might have a lot of internal struggle, somebody who's running around killing all of the NPCs has now made it an everybody problem. The flaws that top the never play this character list are the ones that are disruptive or straight up antagonistic to what the other players want. And while moments of emotionally tense roleplay can be fun once in a while, most of us are signing up for a game about teamwork. And that makes these types of flawed characters incredibly off-putting. So does this mean that certain flaws and character archetypes should just be taken off the table? No, and here's why. When played well, these characters can be as much fun at your table as any other. Key phrase, when played well. So how do we play characters that are meant to rub people the wrong way without rubbing the actual people playing those characters the wrong way? The first place to start when building a character who's deeply flawed is to find the association with their big flaw and their values, motivations, and other things that they hold dear. This is because it's easy to play a flawed character as a caricature. So say you have a concept for an evil character. You're going to want to spend a lot of time defining the things that have shaped their worldview. Because nobody is evil just for funsies. These characters have beliefs and needs driving them the same as anybody else. Take a beloved evil character like Prince Zuko. He's not running around trying to capture and murder the Avatar just because he's bored. He's doing it because he's on a journey to regain his honor. Since he thinks if he can do that, he'll finally be loved and respected by his father. This doesn't make him a good guy, but it does make him believable. He's not just raising random villages because, haha, so random. He has a purpose and a drive. So making sure your PC is just as believable as Zuko when they're engaging in these less than heroic deeds will be the thing that keeps them from being the bunny burner of Barovia. I know I made that funny. Please don't show up to your table with that, guys. Your DM will hate me. Be cool. While making sure that your flawed PC still has values, motivations, and bonds, just like any other characters so that they have a solid foundation is important, there are still a few more ways to make sure that your PC isn't just tolerable, but is actually fun for the whole party. An easy but effective way to start playing these characters is to start by broadcasting these negative traits. So if you want to play a lone wolf, you can say, Edgar eyes the single chair in the corner forlornly before grabbing his ale to join the group at the big table, the one where they're questioning the halfling. He sighs and chimes in, asking. Or, if you're playing a coward, you can tell Tansy's body language is screaming at her to run away, but her shaky hands loose an arrow straight at the warg running down the hill at them. In both of these situations, you're taking an action that your character would like to do, like sit by themselves or run away, and instead you're turning it into a declaration of their emotional state or their intent. This is one of the easiest ways to take a trait that, in the active tenses, would be disruptive to what the party's trying to accomplish. Edgar wouldn't have contributed to the conversation, and Tansy wouldn't have helped to protect the party. But now instead, we're still able to reveal these glimpses of who this character is at their core. We're able to show their internal process, but we're not being selfish assholes about it. Remember, 99% of the time, this is a team game, so every player's abilities count. But maybe broadcasting sounds a bit boring to you. You want to do something. Another way to make sure your character doesn't disrupt the party is to actually take it one step further. Think about how these particular flaws could actually benefit the party. Were you interested in playing a klepto? Don't steal from your buddies. Steal from the people who have things that your party needs. And what I mean by this is, utilize the strengths that are connected to these flaws in order to accomplish the things that your party was hoping for. So if you built this klepto, you're probably a rogue and have high stealth, sleight of hand, insight, perception, maybe even deception. What if you used your klepto-flavored skills to spot that the NPC is using their hand to kind of guard their pocket, or to sneak around the house that you're in while everybody else is talking to the owner? This way, you might find that they own a trinket tied to that Dark Lord. Or you can even use your mastery of deception to lie your way out of a sticky situation. That way you can help get your party out of trouble when the party is caught in an area you guys weren't supposed to be in. So in these situations, you still get to do what a klepto does. Pick out your mark, case a house, and skirt catastrophe. But you're doing it in a way that strengthens the party. One that opens up doors when it comes to how you guys get things done, instead of closing them because your character constantly ruins the plans of other party members. And if you want more tips on tying traits and actions to this skills list, make sure to check out my video on role-playing like a nerd at the end of this video. Another great way to play up the serious baggage that your character has without risking creating some baggage of your own is to move up your character a little bit in their character arc. A lot of people who either want to play an evil character or some sort of traitor heel type imagine a moment that they do the bad thing, but many of them also imagine their redemption arc. Chances are, if you do the bad thing to your fellow PCs, they're not going to forgive you. Most characters wouldn't continue to adventure with someone that screwed them over. At least not characters with healthy boundaries who've already put that time in that therapist's chair. So consider talking to your group about starting in a place where the bad thing already happened. What was your group up to before the start of this particular story that you're playing in? Why did you screw them over? Or how did your cowardice mess up things that badly? Maybe you're playing a PC that's a little bit of a religious zealot. But you know, they're an orc and they worship Grumsh. Because of their blind faith, they've always looked down on dwarves. They were told that dwarves stole their home in the mountains, and they were taught that they're sneaky, selfish, and could never be trusted. Things changed for this particular PC when the brother of another character in the party sacrificed himself to save them before falling to their death in a battle deep underground. Now this PC has to question everything they've been taught. They've been confronted with direct evidence of how wrong they were. And so for this particular game, we're starting here with this newer, tender PC who's been learning from their mistakes. It doesn't mean that they're suddenly perfect and not prejudiced against dwarves. They can and will still make mistakes. These mistakes will just end up being significantly less obnoxious to the very real people around you. the ones who don't want this one single character trait to be centered on in every single interaction. So if you're paying attention, you can probably see that starting further along in your character's arc has multiple benefits, especially if what you're really searching for is a story about redemption. It lets other people contribute to the story, since it would have involved many sessions of roleplay with this frustrating character. But it also removes one of the big issues of having your PC's personality or their betrayal be a very big negative surprise. And this is what lets you reap the second benefit of discussing your before arc with the group, which is that it keeps the negative energy from claiming space in the story. This is how you can actually get to experience the redemption part of this arc, and get to experience things like trying to remedy hurt feelings, or bring back honor to your name, despite the disdain you currently face from the other PCs. Because they didn't have to actively experience this part of your character's arc, you can play through certain tense moments, but ultimately move past them with much more ease. If you really don't like the idea of skipping more of the contentious parts of your character's personality, another thing you're really going to need to focus on is their reason to move past this trait. So whether they need to confront their crippling fear of venturing into the big scary world, or they have their own agenda that includes potentially screwing over other players. For now, you need a reason to be braver or to play nice. You need a bigger motivator.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
And this is because people don't travel with people they hate, or who annoy them, or who put them in danger.
They just don't.
So what makes your character behave in a way that's more palatable to the group? Do you need this PC's items to access something? This PC's powers to help defeat someone? To get over your fear of literally everything and everyone in order to rescue your kidnapped owner? Something has to move your PC past this block their personality would normally provide. And you as the player have to figure out what that is before you start, so you don't drag the whole party down. And who knows, maybe in the end you'll realize that you're stronger than you thought, or that the power of friendship really means more than the power of that magic item. Maybe. One of the most overlooked tactics when it comes to playing potentially grating characters is remembering to break immersion, and to do it often. Now, if you play in a roleplay heavy group, this tip is gonna sound nuts, because you probably spend a lot of time and effort trying not to do this very thing. But I actually didn't really think about it until I watched this one video by Seth Skorkowski. Again, it's a video specifically on playing evil characters, but there are a lot of tips relevant to playing other non-traditional heroes as well. But one of the things I have a tendency to do if I'm playing a character that might be grating or that might cause some intra-party tension is break character in tiny moments. And this actually helps to remind the other players that I'm also just playing a character. So an example of this is a Curse of Strahd campaign I currently play in. We haven't had anything happen involving this yet, but I play Cleric of Kelemvor, and another player essentially plays a Wizard Necromancer. And so if you're not quite familiar with all 1 billion of the gods in the D&D pantheon, I play a character who hates dead things that are no longer doing dead things, like staying in the ground, and the other player is bringing dead things up out of the ground. This could obviously cause a lot of tension, and it can create moments where the Necromancer character might be trying to reanimate dead things to help us in battle, and now I'm fighting things on two fronts because I want their dead things to stay in the ground, and we've definitely talked about the potential of doing silly things like this, at least in low stakes moments. Again, communication is wildly important, but I think you can see how in a high stakes strategic battle, it could be disheartening if we were acting this way. Instead of bringing the party down, I know one of the things I can do instead is make little quips at this other character, or act repulsed by them in their actions, even though it's helping us win the battle. But again, doing this definitely starts to veer into annoying territory. So the way to undo some of the tension of these remarks that my character character might make would be to compliment the other player when it's not my turn. Did they crit? Be the first one to cheer. They found a unique way to use their necromancy. Call it out. Give them a thumbs up and a neat. Do it right before your character's dumb quip about Kelmvor. When the players know that you're still on their side, the human behind the character doing that cool ass shit, then they're also discreetly reminded that you're not rooting against them. You're just playing your character. And this may seem like a small and insignificant action, but breaking immersion in this way goes so far in preventing you from joining the ranks of D&D horror stories. So if you decide to play one of these deeply flawed individuals in your game of fantasy where you can be anything at all, make sure to keep these tips in mind. And if you want even more tips on bringing your characters to life, make sure to check out my video on how to roleplay like a nerd, since that's what I am.